I'm right. Nick Durst here with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, today we once again have one of the great New York Post writers on with us.
Absolutely. Continuing our New York Post trend, we've had most of beat writers on with us over the past couple of weeks. We're really, really happy he was able to find some time with us. He's the current New York Post beat writer for the New York Knicks, longtime Marc Berman. Marc, welcome to the show. How you doing today?
Doing great, Nick and Joe. Finally get to be on. I think we were supposed to do one, and James Harden got traded to the Nets, and right at that moment. So I'm happy to be here. And who else has been on from the Post?
We had Phil Mushnick, Davidoff, Mike Puma. So we got a few people. We have others lined up as well. So
Nice.
look, appreciate all of you guys taking the time.
I'm in good company.
Absolutely,
Sure.
no doubt
We
about
had
it.
Schwartz on too the other day too, and he
Paul
was
Schwartz,
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Yes.
Excellent. So we always appreciate the Post people for taking some time out to speak with us, and we always love just asking you guys to start off with, when did you know that you wanted to pursue a career in sports journalism?
Yeah, I think a lot of us started in high school. I worked for my school newspaper at Beach Channel High School in Rockaway, and worked for the local weekly paper called the Rockaway Wave, covering Beach Channel High School sports. So, it's always been a passion. And, I loved the media even before that. In fact, radio was something that I was looking at, but, it became print journalism. And in college, sports editor of my college newspaper, and worked for in Albany, went to Albany State and worked for daily newspapers out there. So, the real diehard journalists, they start real young, and you know what you want to do, and it's worked out well. And Paul Schwartz, we went to the same college, worked for the same college newspaper, the Albany Student Press.
How brutal were those Albany winters?
Very brutal. It's really, I think, because of global warming, maybe things are different now in Albany, but coming from Rockaway, which was cold, but going to Albany, the wind, the chilling wind. I mean, are you guys from upstate at all?
We're from New York City, in Staten Island, New
Okay.
York.
But Albany, brutally cold, and spring break was just the greatest thing in the world, because you got out of that horrible weather and out to Fort Lauderdale. But yeah, Albany was brutally cold. I think it's colder than Buffalo. It doesn't have the reputation, but Albany was pretty damn cold.
Yeah, I could definitely imagine. Now, what was your path like from when you graduated college up to the Post? How did the New York Post opportunity come about for you?
Yeah, well, I worked for a Capital District newspaper at graduation. It was called the Troy Record. I had worked for the Albany Times-Union in college. That's where Paul Schwartz worked. And we were together in the same sports newsroom. And, I'm covering college hockey in Troy. The big team there was RPI Hockey, with some future NHL players like Joe Juno, and he was the best player I covered, Darren Pupa. And from RPI Hockey, I also covered Saratoga. And that was a real thrill in August, being in the press box with legendary Daily News handicappers like Russ Harris, and from the Post, John Peason. And from there, I went to mid-Hudson Valley. Also, Paul Schwartz worked there for the Times Herald Record. We kind of have a very similar path, and covered Army sports, West Point, and Monticello Raceway, and then eventually did the New York City beat for the paper called the Times Herald Record, and covered the Giants and some Knicks and Rangers. And but hockey was a big passion of mine back then. And I first got to the Post as the Islanders beat writer in 1997, from my college hockey background and minor league hockey background, and some Rangers that I covered. So, hockey was really my entryway to the Post. And, I grew up in Rockaway, right on the border of Long Island, and I was a gigantic Islanders fan, and it was really a dream come true to do the Islanders in the late '90s for the Post.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of you guys, Long Island guys, growing up, a lot of we see a lot of Islanders fans, a lot of Mets fans, a lot of Jets fans. But you are the Knicks beat writer, so now you do basketball, you cover the Knicks. How did you transition from doing the stuff that you covered, which was predominantly college hockey? You really touched on some great horse racing. I didn't even know that about you, so that was really great to learn. So how did you transition, and when did the opportunity to start covering the Knicks come about for you?
Yeah, so I was on the Islanders beat for 2 years. They were bad then, and they were still trying to get a new arena. I did so many arena stories back in the late '90s of a new Coliseum. I mean, Belmont Park was never a discussion. Brooklyn wasn't even a discussion back in the late '90s. And I had just gotten the gig at the Hockey News to do the Islanders Weekly Notes, which is the Bible, the hockey Bible. And I was so thrilled. And I got a call from the former sports editor, Greg Gallo, who basically said, you're doing a great job with the Islanders. The Knicks beat is now open. Kevin Kernan had done the Knicks. He only did it one season. I guess, Kevin and Van Gundy did not see eye to eye, and Kevin preferred to be off the beat, to do columns, and wanted to know if I wanted to do the Knicks. And I'll be honest, I was very mixed at the time. I loved hockey so much and loved doing the Islanders, but I realized it was a big promotion. Listen, the Islanders are great, but the fan base is still Rangers here in New York. And the Knicks are coming off the NBA Finals. And the irony is, I come into a situation where the Knicks are, a dynasty almost. And the moment I got there, it was, and people joke about it, the moment I got on the Knicks beat, it just was a downward spiral. And I don't know if I was the jinx, but 99, 2000 was my first season. They did get to the conference finals. Then the next year was knocked out in the first round, and Jeff Van Gundy resigned soon after, and then it's been a nightmare. Although this season so far is not a nightmare, so I'm happy. But I got to the Knicks beat when they were the toast of the town and the NBA elite, and who knew?
Yeah, and Marc, you start, with Carmelo Anthony. When the Knicks are good, there's nothing like covering the Knicks. And I'm sure you noticed when the Knicks are great, there's so much more national attention coming into the press box and whatnot. But for you personally, when you're crafting stories here, is it easier for you to write about a good, consistent winning team? Or is it better when there's like some sort of scandal pops up or injuries? Or what kind of stories are easier, or do you prefer writing?
Well, with the Knicks, they've been losing for so many years. It's no longer fun to write about that. Knicks fans, they're tough on Twitter. If you write a negative story about the Knicks and they disagree with you, they are all over you. They just want to read positive stuff at this point. I mean, early on, yeah, I mean, you got to cover their crash, but 20 years worth, they just don't want to read the negativity. And we could see when the Knicks lose a game, the readership is not as strong as when they have a big victory like the last two games. So at this point, the only stories that I really enjoy is when they're on the upward trend, and Tom Thibodeau looks to be trending in the right direction. Just did a story talking to Van Gundy on the phone, and Jeff is so delighted to see his protege really changing the culture. And those are the stories. I could tell when I posted the Van Gundy piece an hour ago or 2 hours ago, I could see that the fans wanted to read that piece because Jeff was very positive about their players, about Quickly, about Mitchell Robinson, and just about how they finally are playing defense like they did in the late 1990s. So it was a fun story to write.
Marc, this doesn't really surprise me at all, but some people are surprised at the fact that despite the fact the national media, they want to know about Kyrie Irving and the Nets. More people reading the New York Post want to know about if Emmanuel Quickly is going to be starting point guard. So does that surprise you at all? And how does that make you feel knowing that as far as basketball goes in the New York Post, you're the guy, you're the one they want to read?
No, it's really amazing how the Nets can build this dream team with Harden, KD, and Kyrie, and the Knicks. The stories for the Knicks are still read more. I think it might change. Now Kyrie is actually back, and I think with all three of them, I think they're going to get a lot more fans. I don't know if they're going to steal fans from the Knicks, but I think people are going to read about them more just out of curiosity. I mean, it's just a fascinating story over in Brooklyn, but the Knicks fan base is so strong. I've always been surprised that Brooklyn could not get any traction. You know, they moved, what, 2012 or 2013, and I thought they'd be a bigger deal coming from New Jersey, and they just did not steal enough Knicks fans, if any. And, on the website, we're able to track, obviously, how many clicks each story gets, and the Knicks have always been far, far ahead of the Nets. They have great fans, the Knicks. They've stuck with them 20 years of, mediocre basketball, except for that one season in 2012-13 when they won 54 games. But I'm just always amazed at how passionate the Knicks fans have been, how loyal they've been, and they haven't gone to the opposite side of the East River. Not yet, at least.
No, and I mean, if it doesn't happen now, when is it going to happen?
Exactly.
Right. So you've been now at the Post for over 20 years. You've got to do a lot of different types of stories and cover a lot of different types of events. I wanted to ask you, we've been in the midst of a global pandemic now for almost a full calendar year. And a lot of the questions that we've asked your colleagues who have come on with us previously and other people who have come on, we've asked this a lot. How has your routine changed? What has been different? Naturally, you're probably doing a lot more video calls and a lot more Zoom type of calls like this. So tell us the challenges of covering the team over the course of the last year. What have you done differently? And your responsibilities and duties, how have that changed during all of this?
Dramatically. It's a different ball game now. I'll just pick it up for this season. We're not traveling to the games. Ordinarily, tomorrow, I'd be on a flight to San Francisco, actually my favorite city in the United States. Knicks starting their 4-game West Coast trip. And instead, I'm going to be watching it from television. We do the Zoom calls with the players, which is very impersonal. The Knicks don't even, on their Zoom, they don't even have the video going for some reason. Every other NBA team has the video. So some of the new players, like Emmanuel Quickly, he doesn't even know what I look like. So we're not allowed in the locker room. He knows my voice. So we're not allowed in the locker room anymore. And so we go to the games at the Garden, which is a challenge. We have to get there 4 hours before tip-off to get tested. We go to the Garden Theater where they do a COVID test. We wait about an hour for the results, and then we go upstairs to the Chase Bridge, which is where they put us at. It's not a great vantage point, but I guess for safety reasons, we're up there. But just not being in the locker room, not being courtside before the game, chit-chatting with agents and assistant coaches. It's a much different situation for us. We're doing the best we can. Listen, I've known Thibodeau for over 20 years. I knew Thibodeau obviously when he was the Knicks assistant, and we've always had a nice relationship. He's really a nice guy. I know he's got that reputation as being obsessive, and he is, but there's times where he'll just chit chat. And back in 1999 and 2000, he would actually make fun of Van Gundy for being too intense. And now he's assumed that he's that guy now. But in terms of watching a game on television and not being able to go into the locker room after the game, it's difficult, and we only get a couple of players on Zoom, but not to get the emotion of the locker room, and also being inside the Garden in an empty Garden. I know it comes across well on TV because they have the fake crowd noise, but inside the Garden, that fake buzz is just annoying. It's not that loud, and it's actually a little depressing. I was talking to Van Gundy about this, and he's not even going to the games. He's doing his broadcast from home, and being in an empty Garden, and late in the fourth quarter, Randall is making a great play and Barrett is making a great play, and you don't hear the deafening roar of the crowd. You just hear this weird artificial noise. I still can't get used to it.
I actually believe that that might play to the team's benefit a little bit because they're so young. So it's a little less pressure than dealing. Obviously, the Garden rocking, well, your adrenaline, the momentum, and everything definitely will play a factor to it. But I do think that the no crowd right now kind of plays into their favor a little bit. So you mentioned San Francisco. Obviously, the Warriors play there as your favorite destination. Quickly speaking, what are your other favorite places that you like to go, and what other teams and arena atmospheres would you consider to be your favorites when you're doing a season normally?
Yeah, well, San Francisco. So now the team plays in San Francisco, but even when the Warriors were in Oakland, all the writers always stay in San Francisco and either drive to Oakland or take the BART train, which is a beautiful suburban. Well, not a suburban, but it's like the Long Island Railroad, but nicer. And so San Francisco now has the downtown arena, and it's a beautiful arena right on the water. I was only there last season, so it's definitely missed. But the second favorite city is New Orleans. Listen, the fan experience for the games is not great. It's a football town. It's all about the Saints and LSU football. But being in that town, and listen, now Zion is there, so I never got a chance to see Zion actually in New Orleans. The Knicks game against New Orleans was canceled because of COVID last season. So I don't know what it's like with fans late last season or last season. But yeah, New Orleans is just a great town. You guys have probably maybe been there. Bourbon Street and the French Quarter and just the restaurants and the live music. I think all the writers would agree it's one of our favorite destinations. And as an former NHL beat writer, New Orleans was not on the circuit, so that's a big plus for the NBA. Although missing out on Seattle, now NHL is going to get the Seattle franchise. NBA will be next, and Seattle is one of the great cities in America, and there's no doubt Adam Silver wants to be there.
I wonder if we'll ever see NBA in Las Vegas, because every other sports team is doing great there. And I'm sure the NHL beat writers love going to Las Vegas for a few days.
Well, we go in the summer for the summer league, and it's the heart of the summer. It's 110 degrees. After 3 days, it gets a little taxing. I think a lot of people believe Las Vegas is a great 3-day vacation, but after that, after all the casinos and all the buzz, it just gets too much, right?
There's only so many buffets you can go to.
Right, exactly. And now, obviously, there's no buffets. But the thing with the NBA in Las Vegas, they had a great All-Star weekend, but it was great for the fans, but there were some incidents, some criminal activity at the clubs, and ever since then, Adam Silver is not a big fan of putting the NBA in Las Vegas. He thinks it could be a powder keg. I think he's happy to have the summer league there in July, and that's about it. I don't think they're going to get a team. Honestly.
Better off bringing the Supersonics back. So that's what I was saying. But Marc, I wanted to ask you, since you've been covering the Knicks for so long, or maybe we could expand this into your NHL stuff. What are some of your favorite press conferences you've covered, favorite games, also favorite coaches or players to interview?
Yeah. It's funny because David Fizdale was seriously one of the worst Knicks head coaches in history. I mean, it's not just a record. I mean, I saw it live. he didn't know who to put in. He didn't know who to take out. In the final minute, they always ran the wrong play. But he was a delight to deal with, as a media guy. I mean, his quotes were fantastic. He was always in a chipper mood. So as a quote, I mean, I just enjoyed covering David a lot. And Mike D'Antoni also. He I thought he didn't get enough credit because he did get to the playoffs. He just didn't get along with Carmelo Anthony, and for good reason. Carmelo really didn't want to play his style of speedball, moving the ball. He wanted to be an isolationist. And, Mike, that's not Mike's offense. But he was also a delight to deal with. Uh, so those are my two favorite coaches. I only had Jeff for a season and a half. And I think I like Jeff better now than I did when he was head coach. He was really very tough. And after some games, he was very dour. But favorite press conferences, I mean, I've been to so many head coaching press conferences. The Knicks have had so much turnover. Derek Fisher, it was a tremendous press conference. I thought he would be a great coach. He came right off the playing court as the best leader in the locker room. And he turned into a guy that didn't know. First of all, the triangle was a factor. He didn't really want to coach the triangle, but he just didn't even deal with the players well. It was a real shocker. But all those coaching press conferences, I always came away thinking the Knicks finally got this right, and I was always wrong.
Yeah, D'Antoni, I think he doesn't get enough credit because basically the way the whole NBA is played today is based on how he started things, and I'm sure that's exactly why Steve Nash wanted him on his staff.
Yeah.
Now, how do you toe the line between, if you're breaking news or something, between tweeting it out or getting it up on the New York Post so you could be the first to break the news?
Yeah, it's a big issue, and no one has the right answer. You want to hold on. If you have a tip and a story, do you wait until they finally post it, or do you tweet it out right away because you're afraid someone else is going to have it? And there's no right answer. You just follow your gut, your instincts from all the years in the business. And I think that we tweet too much. I try not to tweet out news. I trust that I'm going to have this story for an hour at least that it takes to write and post. So I am very leery about tweeting something without my link. I think Twitter is really hurting the newspaper industry. I feel we only should be tweeting our links to our stories. That's what keeps the New York Post alive. I think too many reporters, and I've had this debate with many of my colleagues, I think we're too fast to put stuff on our Twitter, and it's not helping the New York Post or whoever is tweeting. It's not helping their organization. It hurts me when we're at a Zoom press conference, and the moment I'm off the Zoom press conference, the best quote is already tweeted out by one of my competitors, and I feel, save it for your story. It's a big issue, and I think that no one has the real answer, the real right answer, but I wish that we would be a little more conservative in tweeting out stuff without our story links.
Yep, can't disagree with anything there. And Nick and I will make sure to at least read and see that Van Gundy feature that you did, because that's going to be very, very intriguing. And I always love JVG, and
yeah, he's great.
We're gonna make sure to do that. And
you should have him on.
Yeah,
that'd be a great idea, Marc.
No, I will say he's a much greater guy now than when he was a head coach. He was so obsessed, and any media person that calls him, he tries to cooperate. I mean, he realizes this is an entertainment business and it's his job to entertain. And, I'll pass along your information, and, I wouldn't be surprised if he comes on, in the next week.
Greatly would appreciate that. Absolutely, 100%. Right. Big fan of him.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Marc, we know you're very, very busy. We know you had to reschedule this a couple of times, but we thank you for taking the time to at least answer a couple of our questions today. Hopefully we'll have you on again in the future when things are a little bit hectic. Obviously the Knicks at this point, it's been a very, very promising start to the season, and that must be exciting for you. So we wish you the best in the midst of obviously the pandemic we touched on before. Continue your coverage. Hopefully you guys stay safe. We always give our guests here the last word. So if there's anything else you would like to share, promote, obviously the Van Gundy story is a good one, but if there's anything else, you go right ahead. The floor is all yours. Thank you again for taking the time to do this with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joe. Nick, you do a great job. And yeah, I mean, the Knicks are going to be on the West Coast. So the games end at 1 a.m. So if you're up at that hour, you could, click onto the stories, or the very next morning, we'll have the full coverage. Unfortunately, we'll be covering it from the TV, but we'll have the Zoom interviews, and we'll try to keep you guys abreast as they're on the road.
Looking forward to it. So that's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right. For our special guest, Marc Berman of the New York Post, from my co-host Joe Calabrese, I am Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.